Yo, what is up, everybody? It is Lyko back with another stream, and today we're gonna be trucking. Yes, sir, trucking. Go to LA. $20K. Let's go. Does everything work? Okay. Oh, I gotta turn the car on. Let's go. What the fuck did I just do? There we go. Right? What the fuck? Oh my god, I'm clicking the brake pedal, bro. Fuck out of here. And it's still not working. What the hell? Did I never attach it? I'm actually so unprepared, guys. There we go. Let's get it. Like wires and shit. It's not ideal. Yeah, I'm gonna move down a bit. Fuck it. I didn't think we were that far off the road. There we go. We're gonna be late for this delivery, bro. Oh. I technically didn't even need to stop because, like, look at this traffic, bro. It is literally 11 a.m. We're not really, rush time already was kind of dead. Oh, what's up, buddy? What's up, buddy? Oh, your boy done missed his turn. Good thing we got the 1-2 rule. I'm so sorry, sir. I did not see you there. Yeah, you'll forget about your day. Have a good day, sir. Well, that was a doozy, but here, let's calm down. Let's lock in with some YouTube.
2014, and it quickly rose to fame due to the way it revolutionized its genre through its in-depth lore that still has people talking to this day. Throughout its many unique games, Five Nights at Freddy's always follows the same basic formula.
My shit lag.
Against deadly animatronics that may or may not be
we have no RAM.
As is normal in game development, there is always some unused or removed content that is left out of the final release. This video will be talking about all of the unused content from the main 9 games as well as the 4 spin-offs. This video will not be covering any lore and will assume you have at least a basic knowledge of the games in question, so spoiler warnings are in effect. Bearing all that in mind, let's start with the first installment in the series, the original Five Nights at Freddy's.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Right away, we can derive from the game's trailer that some things are inconsistent with the final release. We also get to see Bonnie running down the hallway in place of Foxy, and we also get to see him take off the top half of his head to reveal his endoskeleton. This shot of the animatronic towards the camera, despite many people swearing up and down that they've seen it, is actually not present in the final game. This is a fantastic example of something called the Mandela effect. Another piece of unused content featured on Scott's channel can be seen in the original gameplay footage video, or what can be assumed to be a cut lives counter being displayed at the start of Night 5. Funnily enough, this was only present in the beta version of the game, and because of this, we can likely assume it was a short-lived feature that Scott simply didn't end up liking. Speaking of the beta and demo versions, the monitor interface used to look quite different. As opposed to labeled buttons, it featured camera icons with cones angled in the direction the camera is facing. On top of that, some of the cameras are actually in different places. For example, the backstage camera used to be above the door, but was later moved to the opposite corner. The kitchen camera was also slightly relocated.
Yo, I'm fucking driving here.
The original help wanted to add in the newspaper at the beginning of the game was also slightly different in the original demo. It was later changed with a slightly different camera angle, typo corrections, and an altered...
That's gonna cost me some money.
Prank calls. There are also 2 images left in the final game that remain unused due to being obviously irrelevant after the demo. In the original mobile port, the game opened with this render of Freddy from the game cover, which was removed later when Click Team released the remastered edition. The old mobile port also featured a unique sound that played when the hallway lights were activated, which was also fixed in the later remastered version. When the game was greenlit on Steam, the associated page had this icon with an endoskeleton design that wouldn't make it into the final game. It features sharper triangular teeth and red eyes. When Scott was creating the 4th animatronic character, he originally wound up with a wolf character, scrapped it, and then a beaver character, which reminded him too much of his old game, Chipper & Sons Lumber Company. Eventually, he settled on Foxy the Fox. Fun bit of trivia, Foxy's model was made on a 14-hour car ride, which he attributes his more weather design to. On the official Steam page, some screenshots used are actually missing the night text in the corner by the time. This is the last piece of unused content from the original Five Nights at Freddy's. Overall, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 has less unused content than the first game, but actually has an entirely cut game mechanic. There remains a sprite for a toxicity meter, which was later confirmed in Dawko's Scott Cawthon interview to be a way to avoid the player keeping the Freddy mask on for too long. Just so you're aware, it's going to be a trend that many of these things are confirmed in the interview that Dawko had with Scott Cawthon. There are also 3 unused character sprites, 2 of which belonging to the puppet. The first is a close-up similar to a frame from the jump scare animation, only lacking the white eyes. The next is a full-body render, complete with cross brace and strings attached. The file name is Puppet in Office, which implies the puppet may have appeared in the office in a similar fashion to other animatronics in earlier ideas starters, the Foxy model used here is not the same model that makes it into the final game. I think that's rather apparent. Rather, it appears to be the model used in the first game, and I'm not sure what this implies because this was not the first teaser, so Scott had most definitely already decided to use slightly different designs for the withered animatronics. My hypothesis is that Withered Fox's model was just not done yet, but the more obvious inconsistency lies here with Mangle's hook. Now, anyone who's played the game knows that Mangle does not have a hook, and I have another idea for how that happened. I think it's just a product of Mangle being taken apart, and maybe it was never completely removed from the design, but future similar designs for Mangle and other Foxy types didn't really have hooks either, so I don't know. One more thing about Mangle that I don't think I've actually heard anybody else talk about before is that she appears to be lacking an eyelid or any eyelashes here, but that could just be due to the lighting, so I'm just gonna stop there with that one. The last inconsistency in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is just the flashlight text above the battery display is missing in some of the early screenshots.
What is this video? What is...
The help wanted page from the first game is also made in the prequel for the same reasons, no prank calls.
Stuff that didn't make it in the game?
The third game doesn't have much in the realm of unused content, but it is present. There are 4 unused sprites of the puppet, one of them actually being the same close-up that went unused in the previous game for some reason. A seal vent button sprite is present, though this mechanic would obviously be replaced by simply double-clicking the camera in the final release. There's also text referencing a scratched 7th night and altered green text for the 2nd night for some reason. Similar to the first game, a render of Springtrap could be seen when starting up the old mobile port, which was subsequently removed after the remaster, and this game also contains the obligatory leftover demo text and still has the lives counter sprites from the first and second games. Finally, the Steam page. Some screenshots from before the release are missing both the night and time counters, unlike the first game only missing the night counter. Other screenshots also showed the unfinished map interface, missing the play audio and map toggle buttons, though it may be implied this is done intentionally for the sake of cleaner screenshots for the Steam page.
Whoa, buddy, chill. Right on my
Five Nights at
blind
Freddy's 4
spots, bro.
actually has quite a bit of unused content for various reasons. I'll start with the easier ones. There is unused text that says chapter, which is speculated to have been originally used to separate the end of night minigames into chapters. There's also an animated star sprite that goes completely unused, and we don't really know what it could have been for. Like the previous games, there are demo leftovers, though they appear different this time, especially this otherwise unused completion screen that I think actually looks pretty cool. This game also has its own pre-menu render for its old mobile port, just like the other ones. It was fixed in the remaster.
Let's go.
The next code feature I think is actually quite interesting. In the Halloween DLC, the game had a programmed event after beating the game's 2020-2020 mode, nearly identical to what you'd be treated to after beating Nightmare mode, except the chest can have the locks removed, though it still cannot be opened. I'll expand on this piece of unused content in the next section. For pre-release content, this teaser actually has Nightmare Foxy having a really long snake-like tongue, pretty out there, but aside from the title screen and some merchandise, he is never actually seen with it. It's confirmed later by Scott that apparently he just didn't think the tongue was very scary.
On my ass, bro. Trying to cut in front of me.
Unused content regarding a teaser image can be seen here with Nightmare Mangle. You can see Nightmare Mangle hanging from the ceiling, like the original Mangle is capable of, but this feature is not actually seen anywhere in the final game. To end this game's unused content, there's actually a very slight difference in the audio used for the jump scare in the trailer versus in the final game, and it sounds a bit more like an animal than what we ended up with, and to be honest, I kind of like it. It sounds scarier in my opinion, and I wish we would have gotten this one instead. There's also hidden text in the game's code every time you beat the game, no matter what ending you do, and it says, "Well, congratulations, you beat a fictional monster from a fictional game, bravo, big deal." The next one is actually the result of a programming error and was not explicitly removed from the game, though it's not present. After 8-bit Fredbear first tells you to search for the clock, he is meant to say if you keep following him, you will only finish a story. There is something more important for you to do, but instead, it automatically brings the player to the loading screen, ignoring this dialogue entirely. Remember in the last section when I said something related to the box, the infamous box, would be in this game's removed content? Well, a sprite for the open box is actually present in this game's files. It is theorized that this might have just been intentionally left in the game as a way for Scott to mess with the fans, but who knows. The rest of the non-pre-release features are sort of miscellaneous, so I'll try to run through them a bit quicker. There's a sprite for unlocking a red chip named Curse Haunting, despite the chip itself not existing within the game. It may have been replaced with the green chip Quick Start Party. Brow Boy was originally meant to be a common enemy like Ball Boy, as can be assumed by this unused animated sprite. There's a swimming turtle sprite derived from Slumberfish that was likely a catchable creature in Dee Dee's fishing hole. It's the only non-robotic creature in its associated collection, so this is probably why it was never included in the final game. There's an alternate animated cupcake sprite, and its programming tells the animation to stop after the cupcake has bobbed down once. There's a text sprite that says Party Creation for the character selection menu from earlier versions of the game. It was removed when Update 1.20 added more playable characters. In the original release, this star sprite would have been used to signify if the player had gotten any of the 3 endings. There is a file that appears to determine a strength stat for characters on the character selection menu. It is never used in the game, and some programming of the expression is left in the game files. Finally, on to the pre-release content. Though it isn't used in the game, Scott refers to this game's characters as the Adventure Animatronics, which is backed up by copyrighted phrases. These 2 enemies, Unnamed Robot Bear and Golden Mech Crab, were never used in the final game, despite appearing in trailers and early screenshots. On another early screenshot, Shadow Freddy is shown with the Pizza Wheel 2 attack, which is later replaced with Escape Key. This next one is one of my favorites in this whole video because it just doesn't make any sense. So, in the official trailer, Freddy is shown to have a diagonal walking sprite, and in the first release of the game, Freddy could not walk diagonally. This already doesn't really make any sense. In version 1.20, Freddy can walk diagonally, but for whatever reason, the depicted sprite from the original trailer was actually not recycled for this purpose. I could not possibly tell you why that is, but that is how it is. Finally, the slow start enemies chip from the initial release of the game was missing its colon and has since had its spot reassigned to the block jump scare chip. After that huge chunk of unused content, Sister Location tones it down just a little bit. We start with an unused sprite of Ballora receiving a shock from the primary control module spot with her endoskeleton face exposed. I think this actually looks pretty cool. Apparently this was meant to display when activating the controlled shock, which is not surprising. One of my favorite things in this video is this unused render of Circus Baby, which might have been like an early game over screen. I don't know, but I think it looks really cool. Another trend we've seen before, but here we can see an early map that would have been overlaid while in the vents, in the primary control module, and the circus control. There's also a technically unused 8th minigame cutscene associated with the custom night, though it is near identical to the first cutscene, just with the neighbors looking a little disturbed, so there's not really any reason for it to have been in the final game. Another interesting bit is these 2 unused voice lines for the female computer voice.
Motion trigger, technician control. Glass pressure triggered. Please do not push against the glass.
In terms of pre-release content, the 4th teaser depicts 7 Bitty Babs, but there are only 2 at any specific moment in the actual game, so it doesn't actually make that much sense. Another teaser shows Bon Bon and events related to the custom night, though this never actually happens. To end it off, there's actually an absurd plethora of unused Funtime Freddy voice lines, and apparently Funtime Freddy was originally meant to have a German accent? Listen to this. this section, I'm going to combine Pizzeria Simulator and Ultimate Custom Night since they are functionally meant to be one game and the amount of content that is unused warrants them being combined. In Pizzeria Simulator, we can see an unused star sprite, which would go on to be used in Ultimate Custom Night. There's an animated sprite that shows the tape recorder may have originally been reversible, as well as several unused buttons that are related to the tape recorder. An unused Molten Freddy blueprint is also present, describing him as having the most remnant of Afton's creations, and an unused white arrow that was also found probably for use in the game menu. I don't know. In Ultimate Custom Night, a piece of demo text remains that describes a point limit for playing. There's also 5 unused character sprites in this game's files.
That was the side of my leg, by the way. I'm not being sus, fellas.
Were both promised for the game by Scott, but Adventure Endo 01 never made it. Rockstar Chica also has an unused flipped sprite for appearing on the right side of the office, likely because of her flipped bib. Speaking of Chicas, Toy Chica had her movement and jump scare flipped after patch 1.021. The last unused character sprite is this animated sprite of Bonnet getting her nose moved, which doesn't seem to have any place in the final game at all, so I don't know why it's here. Finally, there is an unused desk sprite with brighter lighting and fixed eyebrows on Freddy, along with an unused title graphic that simply says Custom Night. The first installment in the newer Five Nights at Freddy's narrative, Help Wanted, contains quite a bit of unused content to be found. For one, there's an unused Spring Bonnie texture
Yo,
that remains
you're gonna run me off the damn road. What the fuck?
and Springtrap, except for a small stitch indent on the upper left-hand side of the torso.
Damn.
It's possible this may
What's
be
wrong with you, bro?
glitch trap, but we don't know for sure. And also full
I am
light
speeding, but
areas
fuck.
for animatronics, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. Though Foxy's textures are like 5% complete with just like the eyes, so it's weird. There is an unused animation of a Freddle going underneath bed, implying they may have originally been planned for the Night Terrors mode. A random doll model known as Toy Proxy in the game files can also be found, likely a placeholder for plush crap. There's also an alternate version named Big Toy Proxy, which was probably a placeholder in the Night Terror sections as well, having animations that resembled those of Funtime Freddy and Nightmare Fredbear. There's also an unused older model for Chica's Cupcake, which has a more vibrant purple and takes its iris textures from the Funtime animatronics. There are several remaining files that suggest a multiplayer mode may have been considered, with a folder labeled multiplayer containing files such as character info table, MP game mode, and similar concepts. There's also a photo of the second game's map taken from the Freddy files, an official guidebook to Five Nights at Freddy's. It shows the path withered animatronics can take in the second game's associated mode. There's an entire 20-image slideshow of Showbiz Pizza animatronic and endoskeleton photos. They are found in the prize counter TV screen after pressing the red button on the exotic Butters basket, which was seen in some early gameplay footage. Scott removed these upon the release of the game due to fans comparing the images to actual Showbiz Pizza photos. For some final miscellaneous features before we get into the game's DLC, we have early textures of the processed poultry Proxel chicken box, which were found with slight differences, including a cartoon chicken instead of Chica, along with realistic chicken wings accompanied by the text "Tasty Fried Chicken."
Bro, what's up with these people? Do people in California just not know how to drive for real?
Which features the animatronics from the first game and vents. It seems to be a test leftover. The mobile exclusive Princess Quest minigame was meant to have a theme known as Castle Music Title Theme.ogg, which is a revamped version of the track Through the Cracks from Freddy in Space 2, which I'll be talking about in a few sections. The Help Wanted DLC, Curse of Dreadbear, has a few unused things. The logo for the DLC's old name.
We almost got unlucky there, boys.
In the game files.
But we held our
The
composure.
Freddles is left unused, apparently meant for a build a mangle level in the Spooky Mansion section. Since the texture appears,
I've gotten used to not really having to brake,
Grim Foxy has
because
an
braking
old
is when you start sliding.
howling rather than raising his scythe. There are also various early icons with
The ground wants me to move over, but
even
I'm not.
after the new
Oh,
modes
okay.
were added in the DLC, the coming soon icons stayed behind in the game files. Finally, for pre-release content, there's just a handful of different
So this guy's gonna move over too, right?
Fredbear, Spring Bonnie was originally
Oh.
featured on some promotional art for the game, further implying, along with the unused model, that he was meant to appear as Glitchtrap. In the PAX East demo, a fan-made cupcake model is featured by Super Kerbin from 2015. It was replaced later by Scott's official model. The last removed content is from the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, simply showing Dreadbear appearing in the Spooky Mansion hallway, which never happens in the final game. On November 25th, 2019, a mobile augmented reality game named Five Nights at Freddy's Special Delivery was released. There's a decent amount of content kept hidden in this game, starting with many fast facts that were intended to reveal extra lore that were not present in the release. In a similar realm, there are many unused emails, which I will include a link to in the description, as there are far too many to cover here. Interestingly enough, there's also evidence that the game was originally intended to have a paid VIP subscription service, likely including better rewards and overall making the game experience easier, as many paid options in mobile games tend to do. We can safely assume this service was scrapped in favor of delivery events.
We got that reaction time on point.
For some reason, Plushtrap has a handful of unused prototype gameplay assets which were removed upon him actually being added to the game about a year after its release. The prototypes weren't very faithful.
I
to
knew
the
it.
design,
I was
and
like,
they were much
man.
improved when he was actually added. On a similar note, there are two entirely unimplemented animatronics. There is a beta version of Lefty, his CPU icon asset still existing within the files, and his old model and animations from 2019 also still being present. The second animatronic is Easter Chica, found in the files in 2020 for no apparent reason. Shamrock Freddy also has slightly different earlier assets. There are 3 unused shop renders, which is a shame because I think they look quite cool, but they were removed in an unknown update. In terms of pre-release content, there's only really 3 things worth noting. We can see in an old screenshot an early beta version of the HUD with some slight differences, like the remnant icon and an on-off caption for the flashlight. Before the implementation of the balloon reward system, they were originally meant to be Faz crates, tiered bronze, silver, and gold. Finally, there is some beta code that remains in the game in the form of an unused file. All it contains is values for some item drop rates, including unobtainable items such as that, plus shoot and CPU, and bare endos plus shoot and CPU. Here, I'm going to be combining 2 of the spin-offs into one section because their content individually is too small to constitute a whole section. So Freddy in Space 2 is a reference to a minigame in Five Nights at Freddy's World, FNAF 57 Freddy in Space. It's a silly side-scrolling 2D platform shooter that was made to promote a #CancelCancer Five Nights at Freddy's charity livestream hosted by MatPat from Game Theory to fund St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. Most of this game's unused content is in the form of simple sprites. A YouTuber named DJ Sterf did a beta test playthrough of the game, which shows some differences as well. Frank and Foxy's AI is partially unfinished, and he was defeated much easier than in the final game. The S. Cotton boss sprite was changed twice and was originally called Secret Boss X. There's also missing treasures, a pixelated red key, and this art that was later slightly changed. It is worth noting this character looks a lot like Roxanne from our next major game, but isn't confirmed to be her. A similar 2D side-scroller beat-em-up style game was made to promote the next major installment, Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, named Security Breach Fury's Rage. This game has 3 squares. For some reason, the red one is smaller than the other 2, and that's it. That's all of the unused content. There's technically one more spin-off game, U2's presents Five Nights at Freddy's, which is another AR game which was meant to promote their line of Security Breach merchandise. However, I had a hard time finding any information on the game, let alone unused content, so it seems to be generally unnoteworthy.
Yo, what's up, Ricky?
In this discussion. At long last, we arrive at the last major installment in the series, Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. With DLC on the way later this year, the game is infamous for having an incredibly troubled production and a really, really buggy initial launch. Naturally, there is, frankly, an insane amount of cut content in this game due to its nature. According to the executive producer of Steelwool Studios, the development team working on the game, future content updates are planned to re-implement, quote-unquote, most of the game's cut content, so this list may become outdated in the future, but will it really? Probably not. I'll begin with unused features. There was an extras menu similar to that of past games, which had tabs for a survival mode, mini-games, office games, a character gallery, DLC, and credits, though it remains unimplemented. The survival mode was an unused gameplay mode where the difficulty, hour length, and lives of Gregory were adjustable. He finally added the lives into the game. Jeez. The security levels of the rooms were raised, prize box
I'm doing
spawning
good,
was
man.
randomized, though there was an option to spawn all of them, which was apparently very laggy. And at 12:50 a.m., the daycare attendant spawns to enforce the time limit. But since the mode is unused, the prize boxes, Glamrock Freddy, and recharge stations are all completely unusable, so the player always dies. The character gallery had an obvious use. The character would be models of characters and some of the arcade cabinet models. It was removed from the files in the February 2022 patch. There are remnants, get it, of a time and difficulty scaling feature, the difficulties being easy, normal, and nightmare, which was semi-preserved in the game's survival mode, even though that wasn't released. There are also many
We're bugging out now.
A frozen Glamrock Endo can be found
Hell
in
yeah.
the files, and there's even an unused
19K.
side quest implied by the existence of unused lines that reference this frozen Endo. There are also 6 unused staff bot variants. These are the anthropomorphic test device staff bot, meant for testing race cards in Roxy Raceway, the nanny staff bot, kind of self-explanatory, the server staff bot, shown in an early trailer. He wore a sombrero and served food at El Chips. A mime staff bot, likely meant for the daycare theater, a golf player staff bot, likely meant for Monty's Gator Golf, and a sales bot, which was intended to sell balloons around the Pizzaplex. As far as unused locations go, there are only a few. There are a few hallways found in the files accessed through utilidors. These doors acted as travel methods throughout the Pizzaplex, and they led from Rockstar Row to Roxy Raceway to Phaser Blast, and Superstar Daycare to Monty's Gator Golf. The mechanic barely survives in the final game, as Monty can accidentally roam into the daycare when summoned by a security bot, and one mission sees Gregory sneak through a back area of Roxy Raceway to reach Rockstar Row. There's also an unused Fazcade Hive room complete with beehive decals and many access hallways that were likely made irrelevant by the implemented elevator system. There are 4 unused minigames. Bonnie Bowl, which is an early barebones bowling minigame that is really unpolished, and it was likely cut early in development because it was permanently removed in the February patch. Chica's Feeding Frenzy, which was hinted at via duffel bag, and the arcade cabinet still exists in Monty's Gator Golf. The game is accessible through hacking, but is very unpolished and was also removed in the February patch. The third minigame was a minigame mission which would trigger in Roxy Raceway after placing the head on the driver assist bot. The minigame was similar to the Pizza Bot's Pizza Bake minigame, but Gregory had to drive around the track. The game's initial release opted to not use it and skipped to Roxy's decommission cutscene instead. Despite this, assets such as scripts, UI graphics, and dialogue are found in the game still. Through hacking, you can spawn the cart and drive it around the Pizzaplex, and running into any animatronic causes them to ragdoll Gmod style, though you still get a jump scare. Finally, the Monty Golf Arcade was originally meant to be extended, including double the total golf holes and improved lighting on many existing holes. Shockingly, it appears to be in a better state than the one that ended up in the final product, even more of an indication of the disturbing development cycle of this game. There's also an absurd amount of unused collectibles, dialogue, and voice lines, the link to which will be in the description below, since there are simply too many for me to talk about. 3 unused assets also didn't make it into the final game. As we can all assume, Vanny was originally intended to have a much more active role in the game, as any main antagonist in a game should. This is supported by the inclusion of a Vanny meter in the game files, which can only be found using a debug tool. It was discovered that when the meter was full, Vanessa would become Vanny. Speaking of antagonists, one that actually goes overutilized in the fact that he shouldn't have been in the game at all, Burn Trap, originally had a big role in the game. He has a chase sequence, a death animation, and even some unused audio in the game's files, but they're ignored, and the game simply skips to the ending cutscenes after the game is completed. For some reason, there's a cut texture for HAL 9000, the AI from 2001's A Space Odyssey, and I could not possibly tell you why this is. At long last, we're at the end, the pre-release content for Security Breach. There isn't actually much here, just some inconsistencies from trailers and the NVIDIA showcase. There are some unused voice lines from Vanny, Roxy, Vanessa, and 1 to 2 quote-unquote unknown characters confirmed to be voiced by Matthew Curtis, who voices Nightmare Balloon Boy and Music Man.
You will do as I say. You will bring me what I want. And if you fail me, then you will, both of you, burn!
Finally, for some miscellaneous additions, the Magician Bot and
How
company
wide
models
is
and
this
models
truck?
were unimplemented upon
Oh.
the game's initial release and re-implemented in version
Okay.
1.07. And Freddy's unused loudspeaker for the
So we gotta
Pizza
do
Blast was
wide.
annoying for Pizza Place visitors in the
We gotta
early
do
days,
wide
which were eventually
turns.
added back into the game.
No, I'm fucking this bitch up.
And that catches us up to the present day. I wanted to compile every game's unused content up till now in one succinct video, since I hadn't seen anybody include all of the stuff from Security Breach yet. Though the list may change with the release of Security Breach Ruin later this year, I can't imagine it being too drastically different. If you enjoy longer informative videos of this style and like Minecraft, feel free to check out my entire 10-year history of Minecraft speedruns. On that note, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe and share with a friend if you liked the content. Thank you for watching. In the early days of Five Nights at Freddy's, fan games didn't quite have the same hold on the community as they do today. Not only were there far fewer of them, but a lot of the time their quality left a lot to be desired, with a few exceptions.
The lag is
of
crazy.
course. However, the same cannot be said for a fan game that was released on July 18th, 2015. This fan game had gotten closer to the quality and style of the original Five Nights at Freddy's than any fan game before it, and it would go on to become debatably the most popular fan game series that the franchise would ever spawn. I am, of course, referring to Emil Mako's Five Nights at Candy's. In this video, I want to take a look back on everything that this series has to offer as we await the highly anticipated 4th installment. I'll first go through every game and then include a section for lore. And with all that out of the way, let's begin. Before we continue, I'm proud to announce that this video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Surfshark offers a service that can encrypt your browsing data and swap your location to make it appear like you're somewhere that you're not. You might be thinking this isn't really useful for the average person, but you'd be wrong, because you can actually use VPNs to access streaming libraries from other countries to watch shows that might not normally be available to you. It also protects you from data and identity theft, such as from hackers or large companies attempting to sell your data. If you're prone to using public Wi-Fi, you are at risk of this. As the cherry on top, Surfshark allows you to use one account on an unlimited number of devices. So what are you waiting for? If you click on the link in the description, you can use my code MINAXA to get 83% off. Yes, 83% off, plus 3 extra months for completely free. If you're on the fence, don't worry, because Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's zero risk. Remember, the link is at the top of the description, so make sure to try Surfshark VPN today. Our story actually begins more than half a year before the release of Five Nights at Candy's. On November 21st, 2014, Emil Mako, the game's developer, posted this render of his original Five Nights at Freddy's character with the caption, "Please meet Candy the Cat. He sure would like to meet you." Remember, Five Nights at Freddy's had only been out for like 2 months by this point, so Emil had done this pretty quickly. Even just the next day, he had uploaded multiple new renders of the character, which were much more polished and closer to the look that we know now. The next day, the jaw would be changed to fit the toy animatronic aesthetic from Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which had only been out for like 2 weeks. Over the next few weeks, leading into December, he would post even more renders of Candy and the new complimentary Cindy character to go along with him. On December 18th, he made a post about people using this, admittedly very high quality for the time and Scott-esque fan art as fake Five Nights at Freddy's 3 teasers, which is really funny considering what came out literally 5 days later. Oh yeah, by the way, if you haven't watched this video, you totally should. That series was a mess. Anyways, he would post a few more new characters in the passing months, and for
My
some
bad,
reason,
homie.
he also made this.
Hey,
But his
you turn
activity
first,
on
buddy.
social media platforms would slowly come to a halt. Eventually, these culminated in a Tumblr post on May 19th, 2015, hinting towards a secret project that has been using up all of his available time. But he promised that it will hopefully be worth it. 11 days later, we got this. And then we
Oh,
got these.
soon.
On July 3rd, he released a teaser trailer, and eventually, the release day came. He made a post on July 18th stating the release date would be that day. He also said, and I quote, "I only intended for there to be one Five Nights at Candy's. There won't be a Five Nights at Candy's 2, nor a third or fourth installment. I will continue with updating the game if necessary, but that is all I'll do with the game." Well, we all know how that went. All jokes aside, the first game was finally released.
Did
What
the
it
fourth
have in
one
store
come
for
out?
us?
I gotta play that.
So, what is going on, guys? This is Ryan here.
And this is the Ryan here.
And welcome to Indie Smash. And in this episode, we're going to be playing Five Nights at Candy's for you all.
Let me see what's going on, Corey Kitchen here, and welcome to Five Nights at Candy's.
Yo, what is up, my gladiator? Sam here, and we're back.
Hello, everybody. My name is Markiplier, and welcome to Five Nights at Candy's. Now, I've been rationing out the Five Nights.
This game was big. Like, really big. Five Nights at Candy's was almost universally adored by everyone. But what was so good about it? Let's talk about that. The game opens
Dude, that
almost
instinct I
identically
just
to
did
Five
is
Nights at
actually from
Freddy's, with a
GTA 4,
newspaper
where I'm used
advertisement
to, if
letting
you don't
people
stop,
into
you get a
an overnight
4-star
security
level.
shift at Candy's Burgers and Fries. Also akin to Five Nights at Freddy's, the margin of the newspaper actually contains a hidden message. Though, in this case, it's more of a behind-the-scenes look into the developer's thought process. In summary, it essentially boils down to him starting the development for the game on April 15th, after being told his characters were used without his permission because he received many suggestions to make a fan game with the character anyways, so he decided, yeah, I'll just do it. He decided to buy Click Team Fusion and develop the game since he was successful in designing the characters, the location, and the original game mechanic. He then goes on to describe his enjoyment in writing and voicing the game's phone guy and thanks the reader for playing the game. What a wholesome message. Once the night actually begins, the message left for you by the phone guy serves to explain the game's mechanics, which is pretty standard.
You have one new message.
Hello? Hello? Hi? Junior manager here.
You have a door on the left and right of you, which is also standard, but a third opening across from you in the form of a window. The mechanic that really shines, though, is this game's unique quirk, the night vision. You see, for the most part, the cameras are pitch black by default, but you can use night vision to see what you otherwise couldn't. Another unique mechanic that sort of flies under the radar is how the power was implemented. The doors actually progressively drain more power the longer that they're closed, which means you're punished tremendously for keeping them shut over long periods of time. As expected, for the first few hours of night 1, pretty much nothing happens. But on this night, you will get familiar with Candy and Cindy. At some point, you'll notice a pair of white eyes staring at you through the darkness. Now, though this mechanic is great for the horror and visual aspects of the game, it may seem to make the cameras a little redundant on a surface level, since as long as you can see the eyes in the doorway, do you really need to look at the camera? Well, we'll talk about that more later. After the first night is cleared, an after-night cutscene plays, and it seems like we're in some kind of factory, and there's a character that looks like the puppet that we're familiar with from FNAF 2, but it's kind of off, and he doesn't seem to be a particularly big fan of you.
I was supposed to take
Night
that
2
exit.
is also rather uneventful. Aside from under rare circumstances, it only adds Chester, a chimp animatronic that acts similarly to the other two characters that we know now. This night also has its own cutscene, which shows that it's likely going to happen after every night. This time, however, the video feed is unavailable, just audio. And night 3 is where things start getting a little more intense, which is generally how the formula for these games goes. On top of all the previous animatronics becoming significantly more active, this night adds 2 new threats. On camera 11, which shows the drawing room, a plain-looking animatronic named Blank has been sitting idle. His plain look and name are because he's meant to be a blank canvas for children to doodle on using crayons, because he has a plastic coating on top of him or whatever, which is honestly a brilliant idea and character design. I could honestly see that being a real implementation in some random animatronic restaurant in real life. He goes through transitions from lifting up his head to then standing up and then disappearing. Immediately after he leaves Cam 11, he will be in Cam 5, which is right outside the window, and checking on him while he's there will cause him to punch the window in front of you, breaking the glass. And from there, he returns to his original position if you close the window door on him. So basically, it's like Foxy. Obviously, the problem is that the window of opportunity for actually closing the door on him isn't the largest, so you really have to pay attention to where he is. And to add even more difficulty to that, his eyes don't glow like every other animatronic, so you actually need the night vision to tell where he is. Pretty neat subversion of established.
That's gonna be the end of the stream. I'm gonna see you on the next one. Peace out.